Guys, welcome to part one of a series where I'm going to be discussing the difference between investing based on utility and investing based on hype. These are two very, very different models, and I thought it was especially relevant given the fact that most people have no idea how to differentiate between these two, or at least if they do, they're not actually differentiating and they're just buying into these hype coins, thinking that they're going to be the next big thing, but they've got no long-term perspective of what's going on. And so I thought a really, really good place to start would be with this JRNY tweet on, obviously on Twitter, unless you can tweet on another platform that I'm not aware of. But it goes something like this: crypto gaming projects are going to have a big correction when the hype moves to the next thing, and everyone realizes many of these games have years to go before they're ready for mass adoption, especially the new small caps that people are buying into just because of metaverse FOMO. This is the perfect introduction to this video. Why? Because it's so true. If we go and we look on our good old friend Coin Market Cap right here, we go into, okay, we're already there. So we go to the play to earn section. We know it's no secret that these have been pumping, especially last week. They were just pumping all over the place after the Facebook announcement. And ever since then, there's actually been a few other announcements from big game developers. And essentially, there's a lot of hype, a lot of build up around the metaverse. But the more you get into this and the more that you look at multiple projects, you'll realize that very, very few of these are ready for public consumption. And so what that means is it means that a lot of these, especially as you go lower down the list, a lot of these gains and all of these rises that people are seeing and they're kind of catching on to the hype of it all, that is coming from exactly that. It's coming from hype. It's coming from speculation. Now, why is this important? Well, because investing in something investing in something that actually provides something, produces something, is actively part of the economy. And what I mean by that is, Amazon is actively trading. It's a company that is, selling things, and it's operating a business. Whereas if you were, betting or, trading or, getting or buying stock of Amazon before it was a, huge multinational, not that you would have been able to do that, but let's just say that you could have done that, that would be completely speculation, because there'd be no figures to work off. They haven't sold anything, they're not selling anything, they're just in the development stage. What does that mean? It means that the prices that you see in front of you will be fueled by hype, by greed, by fear of missing out, by marketing. And so what I want to talk to you about today is I want to talk to you about the cycle that people go through when it comes to hype. This isn't this is the only way to look at it. This is how I internalize it, and so yeah, I think this will help catch most people or prevent people getting caught on the wrong side of things, because it's so easy to do. And so before we get into it, obviously, this is not financial advice. This is all just my opinion. I am just a potato. I'm kind of like this guy in the middle of the screen. So just do with that what you will. Always do your own due diligence before making your own decisions. I do have some people, I have had a couple of people messaging me saying, oh, Altura didn't, go, it went down after you were looking at it like a few days after. It's like, yeah, Altura has been dipping, but does that mean that my opinion on the project has changed? No. In fact, that's a good thing. It just means I can buy it lower. But that's my personal approach. Okay, so always make sure, guys, that you know what you're doing before you risk any kind of real money, and make sure that you do your own research. But I'm not going to keep shoving that down your throat, because I'm sure you've heard it a million times. Let's get into the cycle. So, what is hype? So this is the way that I internalize hype, and it's just a kind of brief generalization of the process. The first thing is the stimulus. So if we've got something that has no utility, meaning it's not being used actively, D-Race is one that's not being, the game isn't out yet, even Sandbox and stuff like that, the game just isn't out yet. And so stimulus, that being, something like a news release or something like this, is going to have a huge effect on the price, because there's nothing else to go by except the hype and just the general gist and the feeling amongst the community of what's going to happen. And so what happens from that stimulus is you're going to get that initial buzz. Okay. And so prices will begin rising moderately, not extremely. They will start making those small kind of like little, snake ups or whatever. And then around this time, the next thing will happen is these will be the early grabbers and the really early on investors, and the opportunists will get in. The creators would have already got in, obviously, when it was first created. So before that buzz even happened, so somewhere around about here. And so these people will get in fairly early. They'll be like, okay, great, I've got in early. Now, as time goes on, the buzz will begin to accelerate if this cycle continues. Because remember, sometimes it won't even reach this stage, but let's just presume that this is kind of a very extreme example and every step is being fulfilled. So accelerated buzz. So at this stage, more and more news outlets, magazines, all of these things are going to be releasing, lots of things. Oh, look at this. This coin is going up. Squid Game token is starting to move and do these crazy things. What does this mean? Oh, so-and-so just tweeted this. This is going to start the buzz. And what happens around this? More and more people start buying it up and the prices start going from this to, let me just get enough screen space here. They start going a little bit parabolic like this. And what happens after this? Then we get to the mass broadcasting stage. This is when all of the outlets, the news outlets and stuff like this within the space, so it doesn't have to be, on national news, but it could be, but just in all of the space and basically reaching as many people as possible. There are so many influences from the environment saying, oh my God, look how much this is going up. And wow, it's, if you'd invested this is what it would be at. This is where FOMO begins to peak and prices go even more parabolic at this stage. They're just absolutely bolting upwards at ridiculous speeds and at a ridiculous angle. Now, at this point, okay, as I said, the FOMO peaks. As we transition into the last stage, which is the dump, because the early and the smart investors, they sell into the dumb money that are buying, continuing to buy at such ridiculous highs. Because most of the time, these new coins don't have that much liquidity. Don't quote me on that. Some of them obviously do have a lot more liquidity than others, but generally speaking, new projects aren't going to have as much liquidity as something like Bitcoin, obviously. Okay. And so what that means is it means that if they want to sell, something, let's just say they, one of the early investors got in here and he wants to sell all of his profits. He can't just sell to nobody because that's not how economics works. He needs enough buyers in the market who are FOMOing in order to sell his position. And so what happens, we get to this point or somewhere around here, and then he sells it to all of the dumb money. Prices begin dumping. Obviously, this isn't just going to be one person. This will be a large amount of people, unless it's a bit of a pump and dump where, the owners or the creators own like 60% of the total coins or something ridiculous, and they will begin dumping. Now, here is where people begin to get trapped, because all those people that were buying here, buying here, buying here, buying here, because all of the larger flows of money, the larger investors in the coin, the larger owners of the coin, holders of the coin, I should say, have begun selling. When they try and sell, there's not going to be many people to sell to because everybody's panicking. Everybody is trying to sell. All these people that got in around about, here and all these places, they are, either in a loss right now or they're basically back to break even. But they would have either seen their gains reach up here and then see anything as a loss, or they would have got in too high and everything they'll actually be negative. And so they'll be panicking because they had no real plan in the first place. They just joined because some idiot told them to on the internet, or, some news article, blah, blah, blah. No idea how they were going to get in. Well, they knew how they were going to get in, but no idea how they were going to get out if things turned out well. And so what happened? Prices came down. They start panicking. They're trying to sell. There's no one to sell to. And so what happens? Prices eventually crash and just absolutely go through the floor. People start complaining and crying, going, "Oh, why? What happened? Or what happened to all my investment? Blah blah." There is a reason for that. Okay, people. That is just a classic case of buying into hype and not understanding what is going on. Okay, and so it's critically important. The first step for me when looking at high risk, high reward coins, which is what all of these new projects are in the metaverse and beyond, any kind of new coin that doesn't have any real world utility, meaning it's not being used. If a coin is built to, be the currency in a game, is that game released yet? If it's not released, there isn't going to be a hell of a lot of utility, and therefore it's much more likely to be a hype-based play. Now, why is this important? Well, the strategy that you use for utility versus hype is completely different, completely different. If you are looking at long-term, let's say it is utility, okay, and you have a real belief in the company, there is utility and there's more utility being rolled out constantly, they're constantly making improvements to the product and all of these types of things, then when it dips, that means I am just going to buy more. If I think that the company is undervalued, I'm going to buy more because I think that overall, if people keep using it, if the community keeps using it, then the market cap is going to grow because more and more people are using it. Therefore, they're spending more money. The ecosystem grows. That is how basic economics works. Okay. However, if I'm buying into hype and I see the dip and I'm doing the same approach and I'm like, oh, it's dipping, I'm going to buy more, I'm going to buy more, sweet, oh, great, you're screwed because the hype dies. Hype just completely dies. What if the project completely fails? They may have had great marketing, but what if they release it and no one plays it? What do you think that's going to do to the price? It's going to completely fall through the floor. So you need to understand what type of investment it is. Not investment advice. This is just what I'm doing. Okay. And it's very, very basic, but it's very, very important. And most people don't even consider this. They just buy into the FOMO. Oh my God, it's going up. I'm going to miss it. Relax. There are new things coming out all the time, and there are multiple ways to detect hype before it shows up. And that's something I want to talk about in the next video in this series, a few different ways of spotting the hype before it happens. Does that mean you're going to do it with 100% accuracy? No. Does it mean you're going to have to do a bit of research? Yes, of course. But I'm not going to talk about that in this video. The main point of this video is understand the difference between hype-based investing and utility-based investing. Hype-based has some pretty parabolic gains, some crazy, huge exponential returns that are just insane. You know, those 25, 30, 100, 1,000 X's. Those are those super, super incredible gains. And a lot of those do come from a lot of hype. Does this mean that it can't be taken advantage of? No, of course it can. However, it does come with higher risk because there's no utility. What if all the hype dies? You can't always time this perfectly. Even if you get in down here, if you're greedy and you get here and you're like, oh, it's going to go up another 100% and you hold it and then it starts crashing down and you can't sell it down here and you get trapped with all these other people, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. So it's obviously going to be more risky. And so that is why I'm always talking about diversification. With as the risk increases and the high risk assets increase, for me, I diversify, meaning I spread my risk across multiple projects. And then hopefully, even if 1, 2, 3 of those perform, because of the exponential growth, they should outperform all of the losses that I've had. That is my personal strategy and how I'm doing things. But I'm also hedging my risk with more conservative plays, like Ethereum, like Solana, like Polkadot. 3 of my biggest holdings are in those. Why? Because I believe in the projects. Ethereum's a classic example. They have thousands of projects working on the Ethereum chain, meaning imagine if one of those projects fails. That is a form of diversification because it is the blanket, it is the web that is connecting lots of things underneath it. It's not just one of those projects, it's the overall thing, which means that the risk is reduced. Okay, and it's got a lot of utility, it's got a lot of potential. So just something to bear in mind, guys. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, smash the like button, send it into the stratosphere and beyond. And yeah, if you've got any content ideas, let me know in the description, the comment section, below. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.